on the Cultural Connections podcast. We will be joined by Chris Kimble, COO and Director of Sales and Marketing for If You Can, LLC. This episode is being recorded live on Wednesday, November 11th, 2020.
All right. Good evening, folks. My name is Brian Ives, and I am the producer of the Cultural Connections podcast. I am pleased to be joined today by Chris Kimble here on episode 2. Chris, as you just heard in the opening intro there, is the COO / Marketing and Sales Director for If You Can, LLC. We'll be learning more about that and this new adventure coming up in just a little bit. But before we do dive further deep into this, I want Chris you to tell us a little bit about your background and where you are located, and a little bit more about yourself before we get further into it.
Okay. Hi, Brian. It's good to be with you. Thank you for inviting me to join your podcast. I currently live in Bangkok in Thailand, and we've been the country's been shut down really since March of this year, with the borders closed. So no one's left and very few people have come back in. To give you a little background, I went to school in Japan in the early 80s and never really left Asia. So I've been in Asia since 1981, in Japan, in Singapore, and now in Thailand. And have been working in electronics and software and working with multinational and multilingual sales forces and clients all my life.
Well, that's really very much interesting. Tell us a little bit about, I guess let's hear, before we get into If You Can, let's learn more about your background and what type of sales that you've worked in, and then we'll get into If You Can, this new company, obviously, that you just began, and more details onto that. But let's start off with more into your background first.
Well, it all kind of started back in high school. I didn't want to go to university, didn't want to go to college, so I took a year off and I went to Japan. And I went to a little city just south of where they held the Olympics. And in those days, there was no train, there was no Shinkansen, the bullet train up in that area, and no one spoke English. And so I was really totally immersed in the Japanese culture and the Japanese language. Then I went back to the US to get my degree. And within 30 days of graduating from Arizona State University, I was back in Tokyo. And so I started my career really working with people who didn't really understand our culture and didn't speak English. And so I really had to start working working hard to be able to connect with them. So learning how language and also culture is really important from a business perspective. And rather than having them adjust to me, I was really adjusting to them. So as Japan expanded in the 80s, in the late 80s, Japan went outside of Japan for the first time. And so factories were being built in Southeast Asia, mostly the Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. I then moved to Singapore and spent 11 years there. And I would go 1 week a month in Singapore, 1 week in Malaysia, 1 week in Thailand, 1 week in the Philippines. And I did that every month for about 10 or 15 years. And so I was running in different countries and different cultures almost every other week.
Well, that's a lot of traveling. All right. Well, let's dive now into this new adventure, If You Can. Why don't we start off with you telling us more about what If You Can is, and then we'll dive a little bit further into it, and more about the company in a little bit. But why don't you give us a little bit brief introduction of what If You Can is?
So If You Can is a software company, and we create platforms that do several different things. The initial platform was a tracking platform similar to Find My Phone, Find Your Phone, but it's sort of Find Your Phone on steroids. My partner who created the company has 2 young daughters, and enabled to let them have as much freedom as possible. He wrote an app where he could have geofencing and notifications that came up when they hit certain areas. So he would know when they were at school, or he would know when they were on their way home from school on the local on the public transportation system here. And so that was, the company actually is Catch Me If You Can from the movie.
Oh, yeah.
That was where If You Can came from.
Oh, very cool. So why don't we dive in a little bit more onto the different services that If You Can offers, and what is the overall goal that the overall push to If You Can? What is the overall message?
Well, If You Can started here, we're a Hong Kong company. We have software engineers here in Thailand and also in Armenia. And we're really marrying the two cultures in terms of work ethic and managing different people. And also, before I get into what the company does, since we're talking about cultural awareness and cultural connections,
of course,
imagine having a workforce that when they talk to each other, they're using a third language. When the Armenians don't speak Thai, the Thais don't speak Armenian, so everyone's speaking and communicating in English. And so you've got to be very careful about how you word things, and you've got to be very careful about sort of cultural inside jokes, because they don't translate well. And every time you have a little bit of a conflict, you have to remember that people are not speaking their native language, and maybe it's just a misunderstanding or it's a misuse of language. So it makes it very interesting on a day-to-day management scheme. So what we're doing now, If You Can has a new product called Notify Me. It's a B2B2C notification platform that's trying to get rid of the clutter and the confusion that comes because people don't know which channel to communicate to their audiences in. In business right now, you've got there's in America alone, there's 30 million companies that are 500 people or less. Of those 30 million companies, half of them don't really have a digital plan. They don't know how to communicate with their customers. Do they do Instagram? Do they have a Facebook group? Do they do what we're doing now with YouTube? And so there's no solidified strategic plan on this. And so Notify Me has it set up so that these companies can communicate with their customers on a one-to-one basis. So it's not a blasted email or a blasted infographic. It's really me connecting with you, Brian, because you want to know what I want, you want to know what I'm offering. And it's good for schools. It's multilingual so that you can type in or you can send out the message in your language. It'll detect the language setting on my phone, and I'll receive the message in my language. So right now we're able to deliver messages and videos, PDFs, real-time rich content in 120 different languages.
Wow.
So this really started, we live over here in Asia where it's very multilingual, just like in the European Union. And it started because of the international school system here. So imagine you're a non-English speaking parent sending your children to an English language based education program, and not really understanding what the teacher is sending home with your children. And so instead of these long monolithic emails, we started working with our schools to send out very pointed, very targeted messages to the parents, to the teachers, and also to the kids.
Very interesting. I guess another question here then is, so what makes If You Can unique? What is the uniqueness of If You Can, and what sets it apart from other competitors?
Well, the way we look at it is that If You Can is relevant messages that are sent to very targeted audiences in real time. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. So for example, it's not our idea that you would subscribe to every business on our platform. Similar to Twitter, you find the people that you want, but there's no spam. It's the 5 or 6 places that matter most to Brian. Maybe it's your school, maybe it's your church, maybe it's your favorite coffee shop, your favorite restaurant. And so the idea is that these people can connect to you and tell you what's happening and what's important with their schedules, with their promotions. From a business point of view, it's great for directing promotions to their audience. From a school's point of view, it's great to tell you what time assembly is this morning. It's great to send out messages to the parents about specific events at the schools. Churches are doing the same thing here. We've got several of the larger churches. In LA alone, there's 186 spoken languages.
Wow.
Along the border with Mexico, you're seeing a lot where the kids are being educated in English, but they speak Spanish at home, and some of the parents aren't comfortable reading a lot of the stuff in English, and so we're helping solve this hurdle as well. And I think that's the difference. So if you do SMS text, it's a very limited number of characters, and it's a blast out. If you're doing we have WhatsApp and Line in Asia. It's not very common in the US yet, but it's really a blastogram, and it's not multilingual.
No, that's very interesting. I just want to remind to our viewers watching that we are coming here on right now. If you're watching the live broadcast, we're live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We invite you as well, to our viewers, to submit their questions that we'll definitely ask here live on air, and I will be monitoring that here on my phone. And right now, I only have access to one platform at a time, but I am watching I have the Facebook feed here next to me right now. So again, to anyone watching, please feel free to submit your questions that you would like answered. We will definitely answer them. Again, we're live here on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you're either watching the rebroadcast on Instagram or listening to it on any of our listening platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and many more, feel free as well to comment below in the Instagram platform, or even if you're watching after the fact, and we'll definitely make sure we send over your questions and we'll get those answered. Let's talk about some of your partners. You've grown with this company so far. What are some of the partners that you have successfully grown to so far?
So one of our most exciting situations right now is there's a large multinational company here in Thailand called Loxley. So Loxley was one of the initial internet service providers in Thailand. They also have several subsidiaries. One of the subsidiaries is security guards and security organizations that help keep banks and schools and shopping malls safe. Now with COVID, rather than COVID post contracting COVID and then spreading it to their clients, we're monitoring through our Notify Me program their security system. And so each morning, each guard receives a message from us. He tells us how he's feeling. We have heat mapping, so we've tracked where they've been, and we know if they've been through an area that's had a COVID outbreak. And so it's sort of a preemptive tracking and tracing application. The government here, we're also working with the Thai government because of the multilingual aspects, is that when they do open the borders again, we'll be able to help the tourists when they come through. There's tourism is 40%, 35% of the GDP here in Thailand. Everyone wants to go to the beaches and the temples, and it's really a wonderful place to be. But as people come in, they don't know where to get their news about COVID and what's happening with response, with help, with health. And so we're helping do that with the government. Government is sending out messages. Our clients would pick it up in their language. So there would be no, every country has its problem with fake news or with trusting social media right now. And so this is really a direct contact between the official people that are putting out the official word on COVID prevention to the population.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, you mentioned that's a great transition here, because that was the next thing I wanted to get into, and that's on COVID right now, which is really impacting so many people worldwide. Certainly a very big cultural issue. And I'm curious to know what impact has the COVID pandemic have had on if any impact?
The impact has been good and bad. The bad side is we're in the process now of raising institutional investment. So our plan is to go into a Series A. We've raised about $5 million from friends and family to develop the product and to get the initial sales and marketing set up. Now we know that the world is the market because of the language and because of the other very interesting features that we have to offer. And so we need additional funding to get our sales and marketing activities launched. And so what's happening now is that we're in the process of raising money, mostly out of Silicon Valley, but the tech centers in the United States. We were supposed to be in the United States visiting these people and raising the funds over the summer. Obviously, we couldn't travel. So now we're doing a lot of virtual conversations just like this with potential institutional money. The good thing is that this has really raised awareness on being able to communicate properly with your constituents. Your constituents would be your customers. It would be the members of your church. It would be your students. It could even be if it's a large, if you live in a large residential area, rather than give your phone number or to give your email address to the building that you live in, you could sign up through our Notify Me platform and just receive the messages about what's happening, what's the protocol now from your building. So it's much, much safer, and it's a much more discreet way to communicate with your people.
Okay, very interesting. So along the lines there, then we'll go on with, if you can, for just another minute or two. Let's see, if 10 years down the road, where do you expect to see, if you can, what do you expect to see forward coming from the company? Let's say 10 years down the road from now.
So 10 years down the road, if you can, we're constantly developing the product. And a lot of it is, as everyone in business knows, you release the product, you work with some key customers, they give you lots of feedback, and you keep improving it, or you create new features. Right now, we sort of sit in the center, if you can sort of envision a flower petal, where one petal is CRM, one petal is proximity marketing, one petal is mobile marketing, one petal is communications. And so we sit in the center of this because we're able to do all of this through our product. And so we're looking at how we can help people handle their, really a CRM program. Most CRM programs are very expensive and very hard to use. Mobile marketing befuddles people because they don't know how to attract or how to address their specific audience. And so I think in 10 years, if you can, and Notify Me will be one of the go-to platforms, similar to Twitter, similar to what we're doing now with Instagram and Facebook, where people can communicate directly with the people that really want to hear what they have to say. With Notify Me, there's no spam. There's no spam. There's no unsolicited, because you opt into everything. You subscribe to all these places. You want to hear what is going on with these organizations.
Right. Well, what I'm going to do now in just a second, so people can see more exactly here, for those actually able to, that are watching the platform. I know, again, many of our viewers, again, this is just a reminder out there to all of our, I'm going to obviously repeat this a bunch of times throughout the live here, to all of our viewers. We are currently live. This is being live recorded on Wednesday, November 11th, a little after 7 p.m. So if you are joining us live, either on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, and you have questions that you would like answered about, if you can, please feel free to comment below. Right now, again, I'm monitoring the Facebook feed, but I will also be monitoring the Twitter and YouTube feeds as well. But at the moment, that's where I am currently looking at. So again, if you have questions, please feel free to comment them live. And so what I'm going to do now, I'm about to share my screen to show the If You Can website, because I think that, so to get people a flavor of an idea of what you're really talking about here, we have up here the website. And let's go through the website here. Let's talk about going here. First of all, and just dive in a little bit further into these products so people understand exactly what there is you offer and each of these for different products, basically.
So Notify Me is sort of our flagship product at the moment. And this is what we've just been discussing. And let me come back to that for you, Brian, because there's a better website that I think you'll have a lot of fun with.
Okay.
But if you go down, scroll down a little bit, you'll see the protection suite. So the protection suite there's two. There's Protect Door and Protect Me. Protect Me was really built for Android phones to protect your data. It uploads your pictures, your messages, all of your data constantly on a real-time basis. So if anything should happen to your phone, you've got your data. Your data is safe. It's no fun to lose a $700 phone, but it's even less fun to lose your data.
Right.
We've worked with a lot of people, insurance companies, to help insure your phone. One of the nice aspects of the protection suite is that if your phone gets stolen, for example, you go in, you lock it down, and you say, "Oh no!" You just hit the button that says, "My phone has been stolen." What that does then is you lock your screen, but it turns every button on your phone and activates the camera. So as the person who stole your phone hits and tries to play with your phone, it takes a picture of his face.
Oh, very
So now
cool.
you know what he looks like. We also, so take that one step further, we have a wanted poster. And so we create a wanted poster, and it sends a message to this phone screen that says, "We know you stole our phone. If you return the phone, we'll delete all this and move forward. If you don't, then we know where you are through our geolocation software, and we know what you look like. So let's avoid the whole thing and return our phone. Otherwise, we take it to the authorities." And this has actually worked out really nicely for us. People, they lose their phones in taxis all the time. They lose their phones in public bathrooms.
I can
And people pick them up. Maybe they don't want to steal them, but this is a way for them to return them.
I can speak to that a few years ago. I think it was a few years ago that I think I had left my phone in an Uber at one point, and I thought I was lucky with having at least like the Find My iPhone feature, which it's interesting. As much as we think Apple has developed that software so much, it's also not probably where we expect to be. Now, my question on that, as I think about it, is like, I know with Find My iPhone, for example, that if the phone is off, you can't. If the person's phone is off, or the person's phone is dead, has no battery in it, I mean, there's nothing much that person can do. I know that's what happened with me. Does this software have the ability to work even furthermore, if the person's phone is dead or is not turned on?
Well, it gives you the most recent geolocation of where it was. But once you turn the phone off, if you turn the phone back on to do whatever you want to do with it, you get a notice immediately. It tells you where it is. So we have, there's so many sensors in a phone right now, in a mobile phone,
right,
that we can tell you if the phone is in a car by the way it's moving, if it's walking, if it's on a bicycle.
Yeah.
With all of the sensors that we have here. And so also when it comes back on, you instantly get a message saying your phone's back on. It tells you the level of the battery. This was really done for also as part of the protection suite for being able to not track your children, but to empower them so that they can move around freely and you can have a sense of security as to where they are.
Okay.
We've got, and as they get older, you lessen the security and give them more freedom. And so it's a very nice program to grow with your children as they grow up as well. Your data is 100% protected. We can't access your data. You can access your data. It's protected. There's multiple firewalls, and we're very, very sensitive to people's privacy issues. We're fully GDPR compliant. In the European Union, privacy laws are much, much more stringent than they are in the United States.
Sure. Well, let's continue moving down the page here.
Okay. So Bendy we were sponsored by one of the major malls here, and Bendy is a mall software. So to help merchants inside of people who own the mall or the merchants in the mall to optimize traffic flow to get to their places, to get to their places of business. It also offers heat mapping so that mall owners know where people spend most of their time. And so they can address issues on a business perspective as to why they're not getting the business at one side of the mall versus the other. Also, when you walk in and you subscribe to it, you know, where's your favorite coffee shop? In a person going to a mall for the first time, it's, you know, sometimes it can be very complicated. It's very simple to find out where it all is. We've also beaconized our product so that it brings the physical web to people who are not on the web. So it's a bar soap sized beacon that gives you notifications. It's a proximity beacon. So as you walk into the proximity, you receive notifications. Maybe there's a 2-for-1 special on coffee at a coffee shop or a restaurant.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah. So I hear what you're saying. Let's move down here to the last one here.
Locus. So this is fleet management. So this is logistics. So people with large fleets of trucks that are making deliveries. And this gives them real-time control with their drivers. It also monitors driver behavior and rewards driver behavior. So we can tell from the sensors in the cell phone, in the mobile phone, that if they're braking too quickly, accelerating too quickly, if they're not moving, if there's been an accident. It also helps them with traffic control so that they're much more efficient. We found that we're able to save our clients on gasoline costs by optimizing the routes. So this has all been very good. Let me read, Brian, let me redirect you. Go to notifyme.rocks.
Notifyme.rocks, ROCKS.
Right.
Okay.
So this should take you.
Yeah.
So this is Notify Me. And I would recommend, there's a fun video that says what is Notify Me that we built through the power of outsourcing, but it's a great B2B2C explanation about what we do. Don't play it. It's a couple of minutes. It's a 2-minute video. If you want to play it now, that's great. It's fun. It's interesting.
Yeah. I think we'll quickly play that. So for our viewers that are at least watching this, and even if you're listening after the fact from this, you'll be able to hear what Notify Me is. We'll play this quickly for these 2 minutes.
In an increasingly multicultural world, engaging with your audience can be challenging. There are simply too many communication apps and spoken languages to accommodate. Los Angeles alone has 185 different languages spoken at home. Other cities have much more. Even if you found a single communication app that connects you with your entire audience, you still face the language challenge. If you're like most businesses, you'll either communicate in one language or choose what you think are your top 2 or 3. With Notify Me, you can start being inclusive and reach everyone. Notify Me is a notification platform engineered to solve these problems for places of any size or industry, including yours. This one-of-a-kind, enterprise-class notification solution delivers instant notifications to smartphones translated into the languages your audience demands. We've made it simple for you and your audience members. In your Notify Me dashboard, simply create your notifications in whatever language you want and send it to your audience. The Notify Me app detects what languages your audience members want, and we deliver your notifications in their languages. This sophisticated business solution sounds expensive, but it's easy on the budget. Actually, it's free for small businesses. Sign up with Notify Me to get started.
Well, I think that's definitely very interesting, and I think it's definitely something that companies and is going to be a very useful type of software. I'm curious to know from your standpoint, what do you think are your biggest competitors that are out there for Notify Me?
Well, product-wise, we don't think they're really any competitors. The biggest competitor is complacency. And so business owners see the value of this very quickly, but they're not the one that send the messages. They might, in the most advanced cases, they use an agency. But in the more common case, they hand it to one of their subordinates and they say, do this. They've been doing it through They've been doing it through Instagram. They've been doing it through mass emails, things like MailChimp. And that's how they know how to do it. And so for them to make a switch and to learn a new program is a little bit painful at the very beginning. The interface is very easy to use. It's very similar to all the other interfaces that are out there. You know, it's the leading social media interfaces. And so once you start sending it out, you'll start to see what's nice. One of the other issues that we have is that when you send out email is notorious for having a very low open rate. Spam folders get filled up very quickly. You lose the email, you don't read it. What happens with this is that when you send it out, if you send it to 100, it's very targeted. So you send it to 100 people. We have data analytics in real time that tell you how many saw it, how many opened it, maybe they interacted with it, and then you'll see how effective your programs are. So from a cost efficiency point of view, it's very easy to measure.
Oh, very interesting. And just to point out that video, a very impressively well done video there. I think it really gets the message across. Let's talk. I mean, we're going through here. I mean, what are some of the primary, the features to Notify Me? Let's talk about the different features that Notify Me has to offer.
Well, so the most obvious one is being able to send messages that are targeted to a specific audience. So rather than sending out a big blastogram or big emails or SMS texts as they do in the United States that go to everyone's phone, this is very easy. We can segment it to, if you take a school, for example, I can send out messages to the teachers. I can send out messages to the kids. I can send out messages to the parents, and we can break it down by year, excuse me, by year, or by even by class, by activity. So the swim team gets their messages. The parents of the swim team and the members of the swim team would get two different messages. So being able to this is automatic translation. You know, we live in a very mobile world, or at least we did until this year.
Right.
So, you know, being able to communicate in languages easily has always been a problem. You know, Google Translate is notorious for what you and I would use for free. Sometimes comes out very stilted and sometimes not contextually correct. We have 3 AI translation engines that are constantly evolving. And so our language translations have been very good. Dynamic groups is what I was speaking to before, is the segmentation.
Yeah.
And because people are actually, when you sign up for Notify Me, you'll hit the explore button and you'll see all of our clients, all of our places that actually want to communicate with you. And you'll actually opt in, you'll subscribe to these places. So these are places that you want to receive information from. And if it starts to get where you don't want to receive it anymore, you can control that also. So there's no spam, it's spamless. You're not getting unwanted, unsolicited information that just clogs up your phone. There's so much information coming at us anyway that it's really nice to have, you know, what I really want to see rather than what the people want me to see. We're able to send rich attachments, so videos, PDFs. Obviously, we also have a feature called text to speech. So if you're driving and you can't read it, you hit the button and the text to speech will read you the message in the language of your phone.
Wow.
So if it's in Spanish, it's in Spanish. If your language is in Mandarin Chinese, you get it in Mandarin Chinese. You know, if you're cooking and you don't really want to read the text, you can hit the button and it'll tell you what the message is. And again, you know, real-time metrics, so that from a business owner's point of view, he understands the effectiveness of what he's sending out.
Right.
In terms of interaction from his people.
That's a great transition there. I'm curious to know here, who are some of the clients and prospective clients that you have with Notify Me?
So it's really across the spectrum. Initially, we're targeting the small to medium-sized businesses that don't really have a digital strategy. And so a lot of these people have Facebook groups, but they're not really sure who's in the Facebook group. They're not really sure the effectiveness of it. They might do, SMS, text messaging as a strategy. As I mentioned before, there's over 15 million small companies with small workforces that don't really have the resources to do this well. This is a very simple way for them to address that. Schools are a big client of ours. It's easy to segment the messages into the teachers, into the kids, and also it helps with the languages as we move forward into this world. Residential areas, churches are very big clients of ours. And of course, imagine all the little league and soccer leagues that we have in the United States. How do they communicate with the parents? That's not email.
Right.
It's just another email that comes in. It's so easy to miss the messaging.
Of course. And then I'm looking here at all the different features you have that you list on this, and one of the things here that catches my eyes is you say better than Twitter. How does Notify Me in a way connect in a way to social media? Because it looks like you're trying to connect to social media, and what is the objective there with connecting to social media?
Well, until recently, and Twitter's addressing this because they recognize this is a problem. If you are tweeting about Brian's new product, you've designed and are now producing a great sports shoe, and you put a notice out and say, this is my new sports shoe, it's really great, please use this. The Twitter trolls can jump in and say, yeah, but you use factories in Vietnam that don't pay their people. And then other people jump in and say, yeah, that's not right. Or, your shoe's $100, but you're paying $3 an hour. And so your message about how great your product is gets lost in the static and the trolling that comes on with these places. And so a lot of that happens. So in this situation, you're able to control the message to your clients, and it's not a free for all. There are places for that. There's places for internet discussion about the pros and cons of different things. This is really a way for businesses and organizations to send out relevant messages to their clients. One of the things we do here at schools is in Asia, we have Line. Line is like WhatsApp, and you'll have Line chat groups. And it'll be, as a school, we'll be sending out messages about events on the school. Suddenly, one of the parents wants to sell an old violin or wants to sell an old pair of shoes, and it becomes a marketplace rather than what it was originally intended for. And inevitably, people start dropping out of the groups, and so you lose the effectiveness of that communication.
Very interesting. And so from there, then, what is your timetable? We've talked kind of about the future already. What is the timetable for rolling out the product globally? I know that you're sort of in the beginning phases of this now. What is your timetable on rolling out the Notify Me product globally, and what goals and objectives are there moving forward for Notify Me?
Well, we have over 200 clients in Asia, Hong Kong, Singapore, and here in Thailand. And they run their international schools, golf courses, the very elite golf courses. We have coffee shops. We have really nice restaurants. And so we've sort of proven the concept here in Asia. The plan is to take it to the United States and Europe. So we're launching our US sales and marketing efforts now as we speak. We're in the process of signing people up. We do have some, if you get on our platform, you will see people in San Diego, in St. Louis. We have a township in the Dakotas. So it's a small township that didn't have a really good way to communicate with their people. And now communication is really an important situation with the health concerns that we have and the misinformation. You don't really know who to believe, and the rumor mill is alive and well. So right now we're really attacking the sales and marketing and getting our name out as we speak, Ryan.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, it's incredible. Well, we have a few more minutes left. I guess, again, I mean, in terms of notifying me, let's take these last around 2 minutes to talk about what do you think the future challenges are that you're going to be facing? I know with the European Union, for as an example, I know that they have their government is a lot more strict on how they handle things too. What are some of the future challenges that you are embracing with Notify Me?
Well, from a legal point of view, we're constantly working with the governments to make sure that we're compliant on privacy and data safety, and that's incredibly important to us. We want our clients and our places to feel very comfortable that their data is safe. From a business point of view, we just want to get the word out. We're a startup, and startups are fun. Fortunately, in the management team have been around for a long time, and we have the personal resources to see this through. We have everyone wears a lot of hats in a startup, and that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it exciting. But we have product developers that are doing sales and marketing. We have sales and marketing guys that are actually doing a lot of product development in terms of bringing back ideas and requirements from the market to our software engineers.
Very interesting. And my final question, as I think about it here, is because again, we're living in a COVID-19 pandemic world right now. Do you think, being the fact that you're located out of Bangkok, Thailand, do you think if you were to have started this in the United States, or started this company and this adventure out of the United States, things would have been different trying to start it there than starting it in Bangkok?
We'll never know. Bangkok is a multicultural city, just like New York City. Bangkok is very similar to New York City in terms of the demographics and the makeup of the people that live here. The business environment here was impacted hard by COVID because we're so reliant on tourists for our business. Hotels here are very badly impacted by really no one's here. So hotels can be running 1 to 2% occupancy for all the major chains. If we'd have started in the United States, I think it would have been a little easier in terms of getting our message out, but it might have been harder to develop the product. There might have been, it just would have been a different environment to put it together.
Very interesting. Well, I can't believe, but that basically is going to wrap up our time here today. We hope our viewers here have learned a little bit more about If You Can, and we're definitely going to continue on with this discussion into future episodes of the Cultural Connections podcast. I think it's a great topic. I think If You Can is a great company with a great potential in the near future. And I am looking forward to we can continue this discussion. I know we're in talks to having some of your partners coming on with that work with you onto this podcast as well at another date and time to talk about from their standpoint. And you have all of your partners, as we know, are located globally all over the world, which is very exciting. And we're definitely going to be continuing, as I just said, this discussion. So I want to remind our viewers that are watching this podcast, whether right now you're watching it live on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. We are also then it is also going to be available on Instagram, again, along with all of our listening platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, along with many more. So we hope, again, if you have questions that you would like answered in this, you did not see answered, that you didn't hear discussed in today's podcast, please comment below on any of the platforms that we have, and we will definitely get them answered in the next podcast. Because again, these questions, or we will definitely make sure we answer them in the comments below. We'll get the answers for you. So I want to thank Chris for joining me here today on the Cultural Connections podcast. And if you have suggestions for future episodes as well of the podcast, please feel free to comment below on the either Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube feeds here that we have, or also obviously on Instagram. And we hope you will join us again next time on the Cultural Connections podcast. Thank you, everyone, and we hope you will tune in again next time.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Cultural Connections podcast. Be sure to check out our social media pages for more information on each of our podcasts. You can find it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also listen to our podcasts available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and many more. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Cultural Connections podcast.